And I looked over to the side of the stage, and there's Johnny Cash sitting on a very tall stool, and June Carter draped over his shoulders and watching me.
G'day, it's Lindsay Waddington, and today I'm really excited to have a good friend and one of Australia's greatest talents, the king of country rock, Mr. Jade Hurley. How you going,
Thank
mate?
you, Lindsay Waddington. It's lovely to be here and in all the old refinery stuff.
Well, mate, I've known of you and your music because of TV and that. You're always on TV, as I was a kid growing up. I knew you were going to turn up with all the things, so I got my favourite sneakers out and my favourite shirt and the best red hat I own.
It's good to see you with a different coloured shirt on for a change too, mate.
Mate, really happy to have you and Christine come up and make the effort for our podcast. You've got a wonderful story. You've been such a magic part of our music industry, and I'd just love to talk to you about it. So thank you for coming up and be involved.
Well, it's been a bit of a roundabout journey down through the years, being discovered by Johnny O'Keefe as a 14-year-old and sitting here talking to you as an 81-year-old.
Yeah.
And throwing the leg up on the piano as a 14-year-old in the beer garden of a hotel in Sydney where Johnny O'Keefe discovered me, and still throwing the leg up on the piano. But these days, at 81 years of age, I sometimes pray to God it's going to come down again.
The leg, you mean?
The leg, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the start then, Jade. Did you come from a musical family?
In those days, going back to the early 40s and early 50s and all that sort of thing, 9 out of 10 homes had pianos in them, and it was just the norm.
Upright sort of thing?
Yeah, an old upright. And I'd sit on the end of the piano stool and watch Mum while she read the music. She couldn't play by ear. And I'd sit there over a period of time and I'd look at the notes that she was playing and corresponding with the fingers on the keyboard. And after a while, I basically taught myself how to read and how to write and all of that sort of thing. And it was just a progression from then. And
so your ear actually taught your eyes to read. The other way around to some people.
Yeah, and much later, she said to me, in those days, every Sunday afternoon, we'd have a roast leg of lamb, or a roast, not even a leg, we couldn't afford a leg in those days, but it was a roast shoulder of lamb. And Mum said to me one afternoon, she said, would you like to learn how to play an instrument prolifically? God, what a word that is. And because all I was doing, I was listening to Buddy Holly and Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash on the radio, the old radiogram in the lounge room. And I'd just walk over, I'd hear these songs like Peggy Sue and You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, and I'd walk over to the piano and I'd play them. How it happened, I don't know, but I can still do that to this day. How it happens, I don't know. So Mum gave me the option. In those days, there was St Pat's Convent at Rockdale in Sydney, and there was a violin teacher there. And there was old Mrs. Sullivan, who was in her 80s, across the road directly from our place, who was a piano teacher. So Mum said, well, you can go and learn to play the violin, or you can go and learn to play the piano properly. Then I thought, because after hearing Jerry Lee Lewis playing Great Balls of Fire on the old radiogram, I thought, that's never going to happen, or Peggy Sue from Buddy Holly, that's never going to happen on the violin.
Yeah.
So let's go to old Mrs. Sullivan across the road. So Mum and I trotted across the road, had a meeting with Mrs. Sullivan, arranged every Thursday morning at 6:30. Now that lasted a few months, and Mrs. Sullivan had a white pencil. If she got you to play something and you made a mistake, she'd hit you over the knuckles with the white pencil. So I grew to dislike Mrs. Sullivan very easily, because Mrs. Sullivan would give you scales and exercises to do. And over the next week, you'd practice those at home on the piano, and then you go to the next music lesson. First thing you'd have to do is play the scales and exercises. And if you made a mistake, bang. One day after an episode of the white pencil again, and I went home to Mum and said, we've got to have a serious discussion about Mrs. Sullivan. So that was enough of a threat to Mum to go walk across the road and discuss with Mrs. Sullivan, sorry, but young Johnny's not going to come to the next music lesson, so you're going to have to get someone else. So that was the introduction to having early lessons. But basically, I taught myself how to play. It came down to that. People say because Jerry Lee Lewis was around, who played all those zipping up and down the piano, and where Sir Elton John later on never did that. Billy Joel never did that. It was a Jerry Lee Lewis thing. But the vamp in I Found My Thrill,
really got you
domino and everything like that. Yeah. It all just came natural and easy to me. And
what was the first song then, Jade, that you heard on the radio and said, I'm going to be that. I want to be an entertainer?
Every week, my mum and her 5 sisters would get together at our place and they'd play cards. It was just tradition in those days.
Euchre, 500?
Yeah, all of that sort of thing in those days. And I happened to be home from school. I was a bit crook one day, and all the sisters are there, and they're all playing cards in the lounge room and drinking cups of tea, and on came a song. And I sat there and I listened to the song until it finished, and then I turned the radiogram down and I got up off the floor, walked over to the piano and played it. And one of the sisters, my Auntie Lorna, came over to the piano and she said, "How did you do that?" And I said, she said, "You just heard the song and you'd gone and played it." And I said, "I don't know. It's just that I can." That was the start of something that I realised that I had some sort of gift that I don't know where it came from.
Just happens.
Yeah, because it was funny because my dad tried to learn to play the Hawaiian guitar. Once he was hopeless. My younger brother tried to learn to play bass. He was hopeless. My older brother tried to learn drums. He was hopeless.
Yeah.
And I could play all of those things.
Yeah. I've got to ask you, later. In your opinion, because you are a very skilled musician, do you think your siblings and that they were hopeless because they didn't get the right instrument, or no, they were just bloody hopeless?
They were hopeless. Sorry about that, but
I love it.
No, look.
Music wasn't in them?
No, not at all. No. Not at all. It wasn't in. It was in Mum to a degree. As I said, she needed the sheet music
to make the spark for you.
That's right. Yeah. That got my interest, and but as far as my 2 brothers, no, hopeless. Dad, hopeless, and
yeah.
And then when we lost Mum, she died of cancer when I was only 14, and that was so difficult, and then I just started at the piano, just started writing songs, and I thought to myself, gee, where do these songs come? Where does Hound Dog come from? Where does Peggy Sue and Oh Boy from Buddy Holly? Where do they come from? Someone has to write them, and I sat down there and started writing songs, and eventually I had a win with EMI Records in Sydney. And
what age?
I was only about 16 or 17 or something like that. And
people mightn't have noticed this, but you just said little Johnny Hurley when you were talking about your mum and that, and going over to Mrs. Sullivan. Yeah. So what's the story behind that, Jade?
Well, when I was 14, I was with my bodgie and widgie mates in the LOR Hotel. Now, if you don't know what a bodgie or a widgie is, you better go and get a nice warm glass of milk and a blanket and go back to bed. Now, so I was with my bodgie and widgie mates at the LOR Hotel in Sydney, and they had a talent quest on there every Saturday afternoon. We sneaked into the beer garden there. I was 14. And a couple of my mates were 16 and 15 and 16, all that sort of thing. And anyway, we sneaked in there, and there's the talent quest on. Little did I know, but they entered my name in the talent quest. And we're drinking schooners of beer, and I was as drunk as a skunk. In those days, where we got the beers from, I don't know. It was one of the older bodgies. Yeah. got the beers. But anyway, I was as drunk as a skunk. Next thing I hear, the next contestant, ladies and gentlemen, is Johnny Hurley, and he's going to play the piano and he's going to sing. So all my bodgie and widgie mates threw me up on the stage, all upright piano there. So I jumped all over the piano and kicked the keys and sang a whole lot of shaking going on. Come on over, baby, a whole lot of shaking going on. would you believe I won the talent quest? Brand new 10 shilling note was the first prize, a brand new 10 shilling note in those days, and another schooner of beer.
Just what you needed.
Which I needed like a hole in the head. Immediately coming off the stage, I felt sick. So one of my mates took me into the toilet. I said, I'm going to be sick, I'm going to throw up. So he took me into the toilet. So we're in one of the cubicles in there, throwing up in the toilet, and awful. And next thing we hear, there's knock, 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 knock at the door. And my mate said, mate, we're in here, we've got a bit of a problem right now. Can you go away? You know, the toilet's being used. And he said, it's Johnny O'Keefe. It's Johnny O'Keefe here. And he said, I want to talk to that kid who just sang a whole lot of shakedown and jumped all over the piano. And he said, well, he can't come to the door right now. He's kind of throwing up in the dunny. But anyway, the long and the short of it was, John handed my mate his card and he said, get him to give me a call tomorrow. So, but because Johnny O'Keefe and the DJs, his band, had been doing a show in Wollongong the night before, and they just going home and just called by the pub.
Wow.
By coincidence. And so the next morning, I'm feeling sad and sorry and sick for myself in bed still. My mate comes round with the card and he said, here, you've got to get up, you've got to go and ring Johnny O'Keefe. And I said, what are you... I had no idea. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you know when you were chundering into the dunny? I said, yeah, I remember that. And he said, well, that was Johnny O'Keefe knocking on the door. And I said, right. And up we went to the old red telephone box. And so we put the penny in there and we dialed the number. And my mate's got the phone. And he said, look, I've got my mate here. He's the kid who sang a whole lot of shaking going on in the pub yesterday. Put him on. He handed me the phone and he said, talk to him. He said, it's Johnny O'Keefe, talk to him. So I said, hello. And he said, it's Johnny O'Keefe, how are you? He said, I like what you do. I want you to get into a taxi. And I said, Mr. O'Keefe, I don't have any money to do that. Don't worry, just get a taxi. Tell the taxi driver that you're going to Johnny O'Keefe's place and I'll fix him up when you get here. I said, oh, okay. So we went over the railway station at Banksia, over to the Princess Highway, and eventually I flagged down a taxi. The guy wound the window down and I said, I've got to go to this place. Here's the address. And it's Johnny O'Keefe. And he's Johnny O'Keefe's place. And he said, yeah, pull the other leg, mate. I said, it's fair dinkum. And I told him the story about yesterday at the LOR Hotel winning the talent quest. And, okay, get in. So we got in and we arrived at John's place about a half an hour later. And I went and knocked on the door and I said, I introduced myself and I said, I've got the cabbie out here, the taxi driver out here. And the taxi driver was right behind me. He said, how you going, Johnny? I'm a fan, you know. And all this. Yeah. So Johnny paid him and gave him a £5 tip, which was,
astronomical back then.
£5 a week in those days, you know.
Yeah.
And so I never forgot that. The next few hours we spent around his white grand piano, playing every song that he'd throw a song at me. What about Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny? Oh yeah, I know that. And I'd play it and would sing it. He just liked piano players and all of that sort of thing. And he said, look, I think we can do something with you. So and I said, well, what do you want? What are you suggesting? And he said, you're going to be on 6 O'Clock Rock in 2 weeks' time. And 6 O'Clock Rock was the big television show. There were 2 television shows in those days. There was Bandstand on the 9 network right across the country, compared by Brian Henderson, the great Sydney newsreader. And there was 6 O'Clock Rock on the ABC. And I'll never forget that, dying. Well, come on, everybody, it's 6 o'clock, with Johnny O'Keefe and the DJs opening. And Johnny... and many other people like Tanya Halesworth compared in those days, and there was many others, but the big winner was Johnny O'Keefe.
What was the first song you did on 6 O'Clock Rock, mate?
He chose it.
Yeah.
He chose the song, and it was a Jerry Lee Lewis song called "Livin', Lovin', Wreck."
Yeah.
And it got, baby, I'm a livin', lovin' wreck. And it was a great song. And then he went on to guide me and put my show together, and he said, now we're going to put a show together. I'll manage you, and you can come out and do shows with me. And
So you're still Johnny Hurley at this time?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's still Johnny.
Yeah, but 2 weeks later, we go to the ABC studios at Gore Hill in Sydney to perform on 6 O'Clock Rock.
Yeah.
And I was there, and I was shown into the dressing room, and I was with a singer by the name of Booker Hyland, and Digby Richards.
Oh, yeah.
And we lost Digby with leukemia very early in the piece, very sadly. John came round to the dressing room, and he said to me, come with me. He said, I want to take you down to the wardrobe department for something. So I followed him down to the wardrobe department, and we walked in there, and he said to the wardrobe mistress, he said, have you got a pair of... He said, look, he said, everybody in the rock and roll world needs a gimmick.
Yeah.
He said, I've got the Kiss curls. Lucky Star in those days had the Star guitar, and Cole Joy used to throw his arms around in a circle playing the guitar and everything like that. And he said, Johnny Hurley doesn't sound any good. It's
Just
not
like that.
Not a good rock and roll name, even though Johnny O'Keefe was Johnny O'Keefe.
Yeah.
But Johnny Hurley didn't sound any good. So he said he said, you need a gimmick. You play piano, so we're going to try something. He said to the wardrobe mistress, he said, have you got a pair of gloves that'll fit this kid? And she looked at my hands, and she came back a couple of minutes later, and she had these khaki green gloves, and they had diamantes and sequins and all that sort of thing. And I'm going, I can't wear these.
Play, yeah.
People will think I'm an horse's off. You know, no, that's not. No, put them on. So everything Johnny O'Keefe said you did. So I put them on. I said, there you go. They're too fat. I won't be able to play take them off. So I took them off. He said to the wardrobe mistress, have you got a pair of scissors? Here's a pair of scissors. Got the gloves, and he cut the fingers out. So I put them on, and he said, now there's your fingers. Now you can play the piano. There's your gimmick. He then said to the wardrobe mistress, what colour are they? And she said, they're sort of a jade green colour. And he said, Jade Hurley. There's your new name, son.
Just like that.
Just like that. So we had the gimmick with the gloves, and the name changed from Johnny Hurley to Jade Hurley.
So the great Johnny O'Keefe named you Jade Hurley.
Yeah. And 2 hours before I went on, and he introduced me. We've got this young kid, and here he is. And
So the names lasted. How long did the gloves last?
well, I wore them for a long time, as a matter of fact.
Did you really?
They became a real signature thing. And out of the blue, one day, they just weren't there. And we think that a fan or something like that might have just nicked them.
And just left it at that.
And never to be seen again. And then later on, he said, you still need a gimmick. This is after he'd brought me back into the world of show business, because I got ripped off very badly, as 9 out of 10 entertainers, young entertainers, rock and roll singers and all that sort of thing did in those days. And so I got a job in radio at Tuku in Deniliquin. And John used to come down doing shows, doing tours every year. And after the show, he'd come back to my place, and we'd have a bit of a party and all that sort of thing. And he used to always say to me, he said, no one's ever written a song about the Riverina. Why don't you write a song about the Riverina? And he drove me nuts for about 3 years. And he'd ring up every now and again, because and he'd ring up at ungodly hours of the morning, because when Johnny O'Keefe couldn't sleep, none of his mates slept. So it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. If John couldn't sleep, he'd ring you up to have a chat for 2 hours. So it was all of that. And anyway, he said, he kept at me saying, you've got to write a song about the Riverina. Still no one's written a song about the Riverina. And so I'm doing a show at Hay one night, just myself on piano and a drummer by the name of Jerry Burgess. And Jerry had diabetes really bad, and he was going blind. We did the show, and I was as drunk as a skunk after the show. And I'd just got a brand new HQ V8 Holden. It was 2 weeks old. All the drums were in the back seat and all that sort of thing. And Jerry and I are going home. We're going to drive from Hay to Deniliquin, which is almost a straight line, almost a straight line. But in the middle of the summertime, it's got about 10 million kangaroos on it. And here's Jade, drunk. we get to the outside, just to the outskirts of Hay, on the Hay Road, and the Hay lights are in the background. I said, Jerry, I don't think I'm going to be able to drive. I'm too drunk.
What?
And so, not thinking here's Jerry, can't see properly, but I'm drunk. And he said, oh, that's all right. So we got out of the car and he got in the driver's seat. So we're driving down the Hay Road, 2 kilometres down the road, I think. And I see the biggest, it was like a dinosaur. I see the biggest kangaroo in the middle of the road. Here's Jerry, who can't see, driving. Way in the distance, this great big kangaroo in the middle of the road just standing there, waiting. We got closer, then we got closer, and then we got closer until, bang, we hit this bloody kangaroo. It caved the front of my brand new HQ in. Jerry, you stupid bastard! Why didn't you see that? Why didn't you see? Didn't you see it? What's wrong with you? And if you're going, what about my eyes? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Get out and I'll drive. Yeah. So I got in the driver's seat. Jerry got in the passenger seat, and another 2 kilometres down the road, I ran into a kangaroo myself.
But you were blind too.
I was blind. Well, we were both blind. I was blind in a different direction. We were coming back from doing another show, and Jerry had died after this because he lost the diabetes got the best of him. And I got another drummer called Darryl McCleary, and we were coming back from another gig, ironically enough, Hay again. And we're driving down the road, and I'm singing this down in the Riverina, roll down, and Darryl said, gee, that sounds good. And he said, it sounds great. And so I got a piece of paper and pencil out of the glove box. And by the time I'd got to Deniliquin, by the time we got home, I'd written the song. So I went inside, and I had an old cassette recorder. Set the cassette recorder up on top of the piano that I had there, and I just played piano and sang the song into the cassette recorder. Then after I listened to it back, and it sounded okay. Then I thought, well, I'll give John a ring, because he's going to be nice and happy that
you've done it, yeah.
That I find him written down in the Riverina. And so anyway, I dialed his number, and John picked up, and he said, hello. And I said, John, I've finally written down in the Riverina, I've called it, the song about the Riverina. Oh, that's wonderful. I've recorded it on an old cassette, the old cassette recorder here. Would you like to hear it? I'll play it down the line to you. So he said, yes, yeah, I'd love to hear it, want to hear it. So I pressed the start button, put the phone down to the speaker, listened to the whole song all again. When it finished, I picked up the phone and I said, well, what did you think of that? And all I heard was, he'd fallen asleep. Seriously?
I love
it. But out of that particular night, he rang me back the next day.
Yeah.
And he said, sorry, mate, I fell asleep last night. I heard a little bit of the song and it sounded good. Play it to me again. So I played it to him again. He said, I've talked to Alan Healy at Festival Records, and in a couple of weeks' time we're going I'll fly you to Sydney, and we're going to record it at Festival Records. So we did that. Then he decided to do a video of the song. And videos of songs in those days was unheard of.
Yeah.
But Johnny O'Keefe and the master of all things great in the entertainment scene, he said, I've got this guy, and he's got a camera. I don't know what his name is, but we call him CB DeMille. And so he said, Maureen, his then wife, Maureen and I are going to fly down with CB DeMille, and we're going to go, first of all, we're going to go up to Griffith and talk to Al Grasby, who's the Minister of Immigration, because he's the member for the Riverina, and I've talked to him as well, and he's going to introduce the song. And I said, oh, wow. All this. So we went to Griffith. Al introduced the song incorrectly. He called it Down on the Riverina, and all of that sort of thing, and da. We went all over places shooting drovers and dogs and cattle and all things Riverina and kangaroos and all that sort of thing. And then John, in his wisdom, said, I've talked to Al, and we're going to launch the song at the Yarralumla Yacht Club in Canberra. And Al's going to invite every overseas diplomat along to the launch. We've got the video. We've got the song. We've got the video. And festivals printed the single and everything like that. Festival Records had printed the single. So we head off down to the Yarra Lumla.
Say that 3 times quick.
The Chinese ambassador, the US ambassador, everyone was there.
Do you get nervous before things like that?
I was a nervous wreck. Not as much as a nervous wreck as Daryl, my drummer, was, because all these people are filing into the yacht club. John went over to Daryl, my drummer, who was going to operate and press the go button for the national anthem. As it turned out, and I'm doing interviews and everything like that with radio and television people and saying hello to the Chinese ambassador and the ambassador for wherever, and it was all terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Australian national anthem. Go to Daryl. And Daryl hit the fast forward button. And then in his confusion, he pressed the play button. And it's halfway through the national. Well, John's gone off his brain, and all the
Was he a
ambassador.
firecracker?
Eh?
Was Johnny O'Keefe a real firecracker?
Oh, if anything went wrong, he was a perfectionist. So he's off his brain and he's screaming at Daryl, saying, "Wind it back! What have you done? You're wrecking the whole thing." So Daryl's pressing everything inside. He finally figured it out, and then he rewound it, and then he pressed the button, and the Australian national anthem played. And so that was the launch of Down in the Riverina, and
That was a big hit for you too.
it was a big hit. It was a big hit until Gough Whitlam and the Labor Party and the Liberal Party, Liberal National Party, the whole lot of them got into the act. They played politics with the song because at that time, Al Grasby, being the member for the Riverina and also Minister for Immigration, he was a notorious guy. He wore the flashiest ties and everything was flash about him. In those days, the Daily Mirror, which was the biggest afternoon paper in Sydney, tagged Al Grasby as not only the member for Riverina, but it's Grasby country. They referred to the Riverina as Grasby country, which was very clever. So I very cleverly said, when I wrote the song, well, it's Grasby country. I didn't invent that term.
Yeah.
The newspaper did. It's Grasby country. You see that all the time when you're down in the Riverina. And it was clever until Gough Whitlam called an election. And then the Libs said, Jade Hurley's running around campaigning for Al Grasby and the Labor Party in the Riverina. And a lot of radio stations who were Liberal stations wouldn't play the song, and
So you got sucked into bad politics.
It was terrible. I had nothing to do with it. I just innocently put in, well, it's Grasby country. You hear that all the time, or you see that all the time when you're down in the Riverina, and it was great line and everything like that. But
When you write a song and you have such a hit with that, there's probably a lot of people thinking that's where you come from. Where was like home? I suppose we should have touched on that.
no, home was in Sydney, but in those early days of rock and roll, because we were, if you were an aspiring rock and roller, apart from Johnny O'Keefe and Cole Joy, they were innovators. They both did their own thing in an entirely different way. Johnny O'Keefe was the wild one. Cole Joy was the gentleman of rock and roll. But all the songs in those days, apart from, interestingly enough, one, which was the Lucky Star hit, I've Been Everywhere, a fabulous Australian song, recorded by every American country singer over there. The record companies here in Australia, which there was only a few, there was EMI, there was Festival Records, they would get the biggest hit releases from America flowing out, and then they'd get the singers out there who were singers on their labels to record those hits. And until, after a while, we all started figuring out that, no, we need to write our own songs. Much later, as we know, a lot of those songs from the Bee Gees and others took over the world.
We've done well for such a little country.
Oh,
yeah.
Talk about shooting beyond your weight. Yeah, absolutely.
So 6 O'Clock Rock you did, and you would have been a regular on that or a one-off or?
No, I did it a few times.
Yeah.
I did it a few times, and when I wrote my first song and presented it to EMI Records, Joe Halford, he was a lovely guy, and he was what we referred to then in those days, the artist and repertoire manager. In other words, you submitted your song to him, and then he either said, yes, we're going to record this, or you're not. And so I wrote a song called How I Lied, and took it into EMI Studios there, and waited around, had a meeting with him and played him the song, and he said, no, that's no good. It sounds too much like Buddy Holly. So I bugged him for 2 years. But in those 2 years, Waddo, I wrote a lot of songs. And I thought to myself, because I always believed in the song How I Lied, and that it was the best thing that I'd written. I wrote a song about my first girlfriend called My Baby Judy, and which...
Is that how you remember their names?
Thanks very much.
Well, you do a 3-hour show, so there must have been a few.
But in those days, you know, that's what happened. If you had a girlfriend, you wrote a song about her or whatever. And, but I took about 6 or 8 songs in and played them to Joe Halford again at EMI. But cunningly enough, I slipped How I Lied into the middle. And when we got to How I Lied, he said, oh, play that again. And I've gone, bingo, I got him. And he said, I like that My Baby Judy too, about your girlfriend. So the first single I ever put out commercially was How I Lied, and followed by My Baby Judy. Both of them were minor hits. And
did you ever do Bandstand?
Oh, yeah, I did Bandstand, yeah. And there was the Johnny O'Keefe camp and there was the Cold Joy camp. And interestingly enough, out of that, the Cold Joy camp basically was the Bandstand family. That consisted of Laurel Lee, God love you, Laurel. She's long gone now, and Sandy Scott and Cold Joy, the Allen brothers, and that sort of thing. On the other side of the camp, you had the Johnny O'Keefe camp. You had Warren Williams. Myself, Ray Hoff and the Offbeats, or Ray Hoff in those days, and it was quite a silly thing that happened, but it spilled over onto the fans because you were either a Cold Joy fan or you were a Johnny O'Keefe fan.
So you got pigeonholed a bit in one or the other.
Yeah, and Johnny O'Keefe was performing in the intermission at the Rockdale Odeon Picture Theatre. Next suburb down at Ramsgate, they had a Ramsgate Odeon Theatre as well. So here's Johnny O'Keefe and the DJs performing. The next suburb, Cold Joy and the Joy Boys performing. Well, all the Cold Joy and the Joy Boys fans got rotten eggs and rotten tomatoes and everything, went to the Rockdale Odeon, and as soon as Johnny O'Keefe and the DJs come out, they pelted them with the rotten eggs and the tomatoes and everything like that. And Johnny O'Keefe fans went down to Ramsgate and pelted Cold Joy and the Joy Boys with. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Wow. So you've grown up on TV. We've established that. I could be wrong, but I have heard from other musicians and people like that I'm associated with. They said Jade Hurley would have to be one of the most visited artists on the Midday show, like meaning most performances, appearances.
Yeah.
Would that be true?
Yeah, it would be. I went from a lot of people don't recognise and remember but the Mike Walsh Show started on Channel 10 on the 10 network until Kerry Packer saw the value in Mike Walsh in this show on Channel 10. Kerry Packer owned the 9 network, of course. So he had a meeting with Mike Walsh, and they shook hands on an agreement that Mike would develop his show, leave Channel 10, go to the Nine Network and develop the Mike Walsh Show from midday to 1:30, Monday to Friday. Even when it went to Nine, the Nine Network, I was still only doing it about every 6 or 8 weeks or something like that, doing one song. Until one day I was flying to Melbourne to do a tour, and lo and behold, who sits next to me on the plane but Mike Walsh? So we were mates anyway. I'd known him as a DJ from the radio station 2SM in Sydney, the Good Guys, and all of that sort of thing, and doing his show on the 10 Network and now the 9 Network. And he said to me, we got talking about the show. It wasn't a contract or anything like that. It was just, hey, we want you on the show, and good to have you on the show. And for the next 14 years, I did that every 2 weeks.
Now you, in between too, I've heard that you actually used to get on a plane and fly to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And do TV over there in between.
Yeah, that came much later because TV New Zealand developed a show called That's Country. And what they would do, they would bring out a country music name from Nashville to headline, to be the star of that particular week's That's Country edition. Anyway, Stella Parton, Dolly Parton's sister, happened to be one week. And ironically enough, I just had a heart attack, and I'd just been released from St George Hospital in Sydney. And I went home and the phone rang. And it's my mate Ray Columbus from Christchurch in New Zealand. But Stella Parton can't come to New Zealand. She's supposed to arrive that afternoon from Nashville, but she can't come because she's got laryngitis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and laryngitis, you don't have a crook throat or anything like that, as we know. But when you talk, nothing comes out, and that sort of thing. So she couldn't come. So Ray, in his wisdom, said, look, he said, I've got a mate over in Sydney who plays piano and sings country songs and rock and roll songs and all that sort of thing. And they said, quick, get him on the phone. They had to do something. While they're talking to me on the phone, and I said to Ray when he rang, I didn't make any mention that I'd only just got home from getting out of hospital, having a heart attack. So I said, yeah, that'll be fine. So I went over there. What that turned, and it was such an enormous success for me, and That's Country was shown on the Nashville Network in America on cable television 3 times a week to 19 million people, 3 times every week.
Wow!
And that made me a bit of a household name in America. What I would do, I'd do the Mike Walsh Show on a Tuesday, and with my set songs that I'd written and produced in conjunction with either Jeff Harvey or one of the members of the band. We used to do the arrangements and all that sort of thing. And then I'd take those charts, all the music was already done, get on the plane to Christchurch, New Zealand for That's Country and do the same show over there the next day. And so successful was that first appearance on That's Country. They asked me to do it every couple of weeks. John Hanson, my then manager, rang me up and he said, I just got you a couple of gigs. And I said, oh, that's good, John. Where are they? And he said, they're in Ireland. Now, I thought he was talking about an island off the Whitsundays in Queensland. No, over there at Pommyland, that island. Oh, over there. How's that come about? And he said, well, he said there's this couple who live in Nashville, and every time Jade Hurley comes on That's Country in Nashville, they sit there in their lounge room and they compare you playing the piano and singing to some of their friends like Jerry Lee Lewis and Charlie Rich and named all these people. And who the hell are you talking about? And he said, Johnny Cash and his wife June Carter Cash.
Oh my! And
I said, you're kidding. And I thought April Fool's Day or something. But as it turned out, yes, my road manager and my manager, John Hanson, myself, we flew to Ireland, did the 5 shows at the Cork Opera House with Johnny and June Carter Cash, and we became lifelong friends after that. So much so that we could talk to each other on the phone. And now, out of the blue, I mean, can you imagine what it's like to, a lot of people in our business say, oh, I know this person or that person and everything like that. Yeah, you do know them, but not on that much of a personal basis to go and stay at their home or whatever it might happen to be. But can you imagine what it's like to pick up the phone, hi, Jade, and you know it's John Cash.
You told a great story, though, Jade, how he was so into music and so respectful of you being on tour that you were doing one of your shows, well, one of his shows, but you're playing, and you looked up and here they are at the side of the stage.
That's how do I say this?
You would have been crapping, wouldn't you?
Oh, more than that, because I walked out to do the first show at the Cork Opera House over there. And 2 days earlier, we had been to a press conference, and I still hadn't met Johnny or June.
Oh, okay.
And until the press conference. Going along to the press conference, here I was, Jade Hurley from Sydney, Australia. It meant nothing to anybody in Ireland, unless I'd been out here on a holiday and saw the Mike Walsh Show or whatever it might happen to be, because it was called the Johnny Cash Show. I said to John Hanson, my manager, I said, no one knows me here, and no one knows what they're going to be watching or anything like that. And when I walk out on stage, and so you know what I'm going to do at the press conference? I said, I'm going to wear my full gold tails sequin outfit to the press conference. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah, because at least I'll be noticed. And all of a sudden, all of these cameras and everything just generated towards this guy with all the gold sequin outfits and the diamond rings and everything like that.
Still have the long locks and everything, long hair.
Yeah, still had all of that.
Yeah,
and
same colour.
God, don't we wish we could go back to those days when it was black? But and then Johnny's hire car pulled up, and there's a photo of us, or vision of us actually, of us saying hi to each other, going into the press conference, and that was the first time that I'd ever met John. Ironically enough, June didn't go to the press conference. The next morning, on the Cork Times, the main newspaper, Jade Hurley in the gold outfit, in a colour photo, made the front page, and John Cash was on page 4.
Oh,
and
did he wear it well?
He was over the moon about it.
Oh, really?
He said because he'd never known anyone to pull a stunt like that, quite like that. He said because over our many conversations down through the years subsequent to that, we talked about all things entertainment, all the radicals in the entertainment, all the crazies in the entertainment, all the greats of the entertainment, and not only here in Australia, because he knew Johnny O'Keefe and Cole Joy and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All that. But it was just one of those things. He said, you had the nerve to do that. The first show I did, I was introduced and out, and I went out there, and the first song I did in the show was A Whole Lot of Shaking Going On, ironically enough. And I looked over to the side of the stage in the wings and behind the curtains, and there's Johnny Cash sitting on a very tall stool, and June Carter draped over his shoulders with her arms like that and watching me. They knew what I did because they'd seen me on That's Country, and that's the reason why I was there.
Yeah.
But they hadn't seen me perform live. And we had 5 shows there at the Opera House. So everything sold out and everything like that. Every show, Johnny and June were in the wings there watching me perform.
Incredible.
And I said to him a long time later, I said the same thing to Johnny O'Keefe all those years earlier. What attracted you to me to want to get involved with me as an act and all that sort of thing? And Johnny O'Keefe said at first, he said, He said, you play the piano, but you play it different. And Johnny Cash said the same thing. He said, you play it he said, you play like Jerry Lee, but he said, you play it different.
With TV and everything though, Jade, who's been one of the greatest entertainers? Like if you weren't Jade Hurley, who's one of the ones you go, geez, I would love to be able to do that?
Liberace.
Yeah? Yeah.
Liberace, the greatest showman of all time. Johnny said to me, why don't you, we'll look around and we'll get you some good jewellery, showy gear that nobody wears out here. So we put two and two together, and over a period of years, mainly concerned with the Mike Walsh Show, because I was doing that so often, I had to have different changes of outfits for every show. Mm-hmm. So we chopped and changed different outfits and different colours. In those days, there was only one person in Australia who could, as a seamstress, who could sew sequins, and I'm talking full-on sequins. Not these sequins here. These are the today's sequins, if you like. They're a cheaper version, if you like, if I can put it that way. Mainly because they don't make the full-on sequins anymore. And if they do, to buy them costs you a fortune. An entertainer in Sydney at that time, his name was Francis Shaw. I say his name was Francis Shaw. His real name was Frank Shaw, but he was a female impersonator. Oh. And he called himself Francis Shaw, and he was a funny comedian as well, and a good singer and everything. He was a great entertainer, but he was a great seamstress. Francis, when he'd go on holidays, he'd go to Japan just to look for sequins to buy new sequins so he could bring them back. Hey, I've got another five new outfits for the Mike Show and everything like that. Over the years, I spent a fortune.
Well, are these an original set, Jade, or they've changed over the years?
That's an original. The rest of them are just would-be's if they could be's.
Yeah.
Because I had, that's an original with the Jade.
That's got your name on it?
Yeah. And I left my motorhome parked outside my penthouse unit on the Gold Coast at Palm Beach, and was broken into, and all my jewellery was stolen.
I got a good price for them too, mate.
But that was a sad day because they got that one back, and the rest of them were gone.
The bracelet, so somebody's custom made that, you can see it. It's got your name written on it.
Yeah, that was a mate of mine who was a Qantas flight steward, and he'd go to Singapore and places like that all the time, flying there, and he said, because in those days I had a very cheap bracelet, but it was showy, but it was cheap, and he said, would you like me to suss around over there, sir, if I can get something made up for you? Anyway, he brought this back without the jade on it. It was just and I said to him, could you take it back with you and take it back to the store and see if they can do a jade in diamonds? And a couple of weeks later, he brought it back, and I've had it for all these years.
How old would it be, you reckon?
That now is probably 40 years old. It's funny because what I wear is, I mean, you have a look at my boots there, for instance, and you look at them and you think, oh, they're American Western boots.
Oh, I thought that, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not. I bought these on the first time I ever went to Thailand, to Bangkok. And I was just wandering down the street in one night in Bangkok, and I saw this tailor-made American boots. And I went in and I got them made, and now they're about 48 years old, and I still wear them on every show. And we were walking out of the store, and Christine saw that almost out of sight, and she said, "Oh, come back in here and have a look at this." So he bought this.
You bloody stole it off a rich dog.
And we got no idea. No idea after the show, and just how many ladies and how many people say, "Hey, can we have a look at your boot?"
Oh, Jesus!
with the shiny thing on it, all of that sort of thing. Because Waddo showbiz, And unfortunately, that word showbiz, Johnny O'Keefe instilled into me. I remember when he showed up at the Sydney Stadium with the leopard skin lapels and everything like that. No one was game to wear anything like that.
Yeah.
That's what drew me to Liberace. I mean, the clothes that he wore, the ostentatious look, the persona that he took out on stage, and not only that, couldn't he play the piano? Oh man! So, it's we're in a business called showbiz.
You've had so much success with sales and that, and TV would have had to have helped. Like your face was on TV all the time. I don't think there would have been many hotter artists in Australia at the time. Like you were always on TV. Well, it felt like that, watching as a kid. And it's pretty surreal for me to be able to sit and say now, people like yourself record in my studio and we get to work together and that. Like, if you would have said that as a kid, I'd say, oh, yeah, I can see that coming. Yeah. But you've had gold records, multi-platinum selling records.
Yeah.
Would you know, what's the biggest seller you've had, Jade? Because I know you've had about 20 gold records or something, haven't you?
Probably the first one off the Mike Walsh Show, which was called Jade Hurley's 20 Golden Oldens. I mean, that's, nearly sold 1 million copies and still sells. There was that one. Because remember in those days, Mike said to me after the show when we're having a drink in his dressing room, and he said, you know what we should do? He said we should record an album, an album live off the show. Because, the 20 Golden Oldens and the solid gold segments that you do are going through the roof.
Yep.
And they were getting astronomical mail in those days, letters saying, oh, can you get Jade to sing Itsy Bitsy Teeny or whatever.
Nearly like their own jukebox.
Absolutely. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And they got more mail on my segment requesting songs than any other segment.
It's fantastic.
That show that what it did to Australian showbiz, and so many overseas acts would come to Australia because they knew, the promoters here in Australia knew that they could get their act on the Mike Walsh Show and sell out the tours.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore.
Oh, well, we've got a cooking show every night. I sit and watch my wife cook dinner for us.
There you go.
It's
like exciting, isn't it?
It is when it comes to the table. Yeah.
But actually, look, it all comes down to showbiz.
Would you know roughly, Jade, how many millions of albums you would have sold over the years?
I mean, at one stage there for a number of years, Festival Records couldn't print enough. We're going back to the 12-inch LPs. When he said we should record an album off the show called it Jade Hurley's 20 Golden Oldens. Oh, that's good. So we did. And so we recorded the album and everything like that at Channel 9, live. It was warts and all, and no auto-tunes or anything like that. Mistakes from the band, and they're all there. But the first time Mike held up that album, that 12-inch LP, it went nuts all over Australia. Every record store in Australia, of which there were thousands in those days, none anymore, they went nuts ordering. So much so that Festival Records couldn't press the records fast enough. It was extraordinary, and that was unheard of. So in answer to your question, how many millions, I don't know.
Well, it's still wonderful to have you here, mate, in the studio recording. You've still got the zest. You're still doing heaps of shows and packing auditoriums, and I can't see it stopping, mate. I think you'll end up, your last story will be on stage, I reckon, or in a studio. You just love music, still love the people.
Well, they say, would you like to die on stage? No, I don't think so. I think I'd just rather go to bed one night and go to sleep. That'll do.
I tell you what, if you do on my stage, you want to... Christine will want to check, make sure all the rings and bracelets are there. Mate, I got to tell you, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
I tell you what, this man, there is no more you could have done in this industry. He's a great fella, one of the greatest showmen we've ever had, played with some of the biggest names, toured the world. Great having you here, Mr. Jade Hurley.
Thank you, Waddo.
Thanks, mate.